Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Hybrid Occupancy Strategies for Facility Leaders. I'm Jennifer Getz, the Editorial Director of Facility Executive Magazine, and this webinar is presented by Hubstar. Before we get started, I'll cover a few housekeeping items. Please note the control panel on your screen. This is where you can submit questions via the question box at any time. There will be a Q&A portion after this presentation, so please type your questions there to send them to us. If at any time you experience a technical difficulty, please send a message to us via the questions section and someone on our team will answer you privately. Also, please note the orange arrow on the left side of your control panel. Clicking on that arrow will either expand or collapse the control panel, so please be sure the panel is expanded so you can access the question box. And if you are interested in continuing education credits, please note that you'll receive a certificate of attendance in an email from Facility Executive after this webinar. You can report to your association for the credit. And now I'll introduce your speaker today. Chris Lamdu is the Vice President of Product at Hubstar. Chris has over 20 years of experience across engineering and product development in workplace technology solutions and is passionate about building the next generation of tools required for effective hybrid working and the future of workplace strategy. Hello, Chris. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks, Jen. Excited to be here, and thank you everyone for attending today. Excited to go through this content. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and kick things off. So what we're going to start things off with is just a quick definition. So the topic for today being around hybrid work, we thought it would be a good idea to define what hybrid is. So hybrid is a term that's being used quite a bit in our industry as well as outside the industry. So if you were to Google hybrid work, there's all kinds of articles that are out there defining what it is and talking about the effects of hybrid and correlating hybrid to return to office. And it's pretty interesting that there's a lot of mainstream media outlets that are picking this up. So it's exciting times. It's exciting that real estate is finally being recognized as a strategic component of an organization and being leveraged accordingly. So what is hybrid work? So it's a flexible work model that supports a blend of in-office and remote workers. And that component of the in-office, there's a hybrid component to that as well. So inside or between the lines of this definition, there's even a little bit more to what hybrid is. And we'll get into that a bit as we go through the content today and start talking about the different types of hybrid strategies from an in-office perspective. And then obviously you've got the remote workers or work from home contingent and those folks continuing to work from home in some situations or even some days of the week, which in itself is an extension of the real estate portfolio from a capacity perspective, which should be accounted for today in the different analytics that are being used to measure performance and support future decisions as it relates to the overall supply that an organization is carrying into the future. So that's the definition of hybrid. So let's jump into this a little bit further. So why do employees prefer work from home flexibility? So we had the pandemic that hit, unfortunately, and it sort of forced everyone's hand in terms of everyone working from home overnight. And a lot of folks have realized now that work from home is here to stay, and we need to find a balance. So these are some of the reasons why employees prefer to work from home. There's the work-life balance, which is important. And a lot of folks have adapted to working from home. So they've incorporated exercise into their daily routine. So they've got yoga classes in the morning or afternoon or whatever it might be. It doesn't always require that someone needs to be in the office or working from 9 to 5. There's work that needs to be done. As long as it gets done, that's fine. So they can schedule certain things throughout their day, and they want to keep that level of flexibility to allow for that balance. There's personal development. So coming back into the office and getting face time with colleagues that has a positive effect on career development and personal development for that matter. Family time. So I'm working from home right now, so I can, if my Apple Watch tells me to get up and go for a walk, do my uptime so I get my circle for the day. I can stand up, walk around the house a little bit, say hi to everybody, and then come back into the office. So you get that capability to engage a little bit more with family that otherwise wasn't there when we were in the office all the time. And then collaboration in person and at home. So with all these new technologies that we have now, collaboration is not only or not exclusive to the office. We have the capability to leverage technologies like we're using today, or Teams or Zoom or whatever the technology may be, to be able to collaborate from home, and then also the same while we're in the office. And then lastly, the ability to choose quiet time. And this may be at home, this may be in the office, depending upon the situation of an individual. So these are some of the whys as to why employees prefer to work from home, or at least that flexibility. So let's take a quick look at why this is important, why employee experience is important. So employee retention. So we spoke about all the different reasons why folks want flexibility. So giving employees choice helps with retention, and it can be used, and also talent attraction. So outlining what your policies are around being in the office and being able to spend time at home, that can be seen as a real benefit to folks that you're looking to attract into your business. And then obviously the retention aspect as well, keeping all the talent that you have within your organization. Motivation and productivity. So it's important to keep folks motivated by providing choice. They feel comfortable, they've got flexibility, and they can choose when they're most productive. I need to whiteboard and collaborate with folks, so I might schedule a meeting in the office versus scheduling a Teams call from home. And then we have connectivity and collaboration, and this is culture. It's a lot of aspects of a particular organization that are really important. So being able to maintain a high degree of connectivity and collaboration, problem solving, all the benefits. So that experience is important under this aspect as well. And then lastly, safety concerns. So during COVID, there was all kinds of safety measures that were implemented: 6-foot social distancing, clean up between meetings, all those different things that were put in place. But those safety concerns continue to be a part of concerns that employees have. So when I come into the office, I don't want it to be overwhelming. I don't want there to be an overcapacity type of feeling where it's not safe. So it's important to be cognizant of those safety concerns, even in a sort of post-COVID world, or we're just learning to live with it world, really. So let's take a look at some of the challenges of improving the experience. So we spoke about the importance of it, but what are the challenges? It's not easy to improve the experience, and that's why we're having this conversation with you today, because we feel strongly we can help with this particular challenge. So let's take a look at some of the challenges. So a particular person needs a desk 2 days a week, but they're going to be on vacation in 6 weeks. So what do I do with what do I do in terms of being able to free up that particular space while I'm on PTO, as opposed to it just sitting there? I find work more rewarding when I'm in control of my options. I think a lot of us feel this way. Most people feel this way. Not everyone wants to be told what to do or have mandates that they have to comply with. So having choice and control of options is important. I would like to have a desk available nearby when I have a meeting. So a challenge which can be solved through technology. I'd rather schedule longer term, but reoccurring bookings are too rigid. So that's an existing concept in most traditional space scheduling solutions, where you can go in and say, oh, I'd like to book a particular desk in perpetuity on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And it goes ahead and books that out, but doesn't offer a lot of flexibility from week to week, from day to day, not accounting for the fluctuation of colleagues that are going to be in on different days and in different places. And then it also, there's rules that might be applied or policies that are applied to reoccurring, where you can only do it up to 3 weeks in a row, and then you have to remember to do it every 3 weeks. Otherwise, you're not going to have a place to come in and work. So all really important challenges to address. And then I'd like to attend a yoga class in the office gym on Thursdays. So probably makes sense to be in on Thursdays as opposed to another day. I prefer Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Mondays are not an option for me. And then I need to be close to my team, and I need to collaborate with the marketing team. So that is directly aligned with the benefits of productivity, why folks are going into the office, to collaborate, and when they do come in, being close to folks that they're often working with is a benefit. So those are some of the challenges of improving the experience and it's really from an employee perspective. So let's flip the coin a bit, and there's also the rest of the term up top, as well as improving utilization. So improving the employee experience and at the same time looking to improve utilization, and the challenges of looking to improve utilization. So we need to apply ever-changing health and safety rules and monitor compliance. So we spoke about this a little bit earlier in a prior slide with all of the health and safety regulations that were put in place, and now during COVID, and then now are being adapted as we're in this sort of perpetual COVID sort of life cycle, otherwise referred to as post-COVID. And we need to monitor that compliance. How to offer choice to employees and at the same time optimize capacity and space utilization. Floor 3 is overcapacity on Monday, just based upon how folks are choosing to use the office. It just happens to be that folks are gravitating to that floor on Mondays, which is causing an issue. Some business units need to be separated without rigid desk allocations. So there might be a conflict of interest between two groups. They physically need to be separated. Maybe they can't be the same floor, maybe even the same building. So being able to still account for what's referred to as an adjacencies, folks sitting next to each other, account for predetermined or pre-identified adjacencies, and having that enforced through a scheduling system to say, hey, that you no longer can sit in this area because someone that you're not allowed to sit next to is on that floor, in a more elegant way, obviously. We are still limited by peak utilization and wasting space, which is a common struggle of space planners, even pre-pandemic, right? So if you're starting to measure utilization and look at security logs and bag swipes and get a feel for how many people are actually coming into the office, peaks sort of set the high tide mark, and that's the amount of supply we need because we need to account for peaks. The problem is that peak is a point in time, right? And then you've got all that unused capacity on those other days that aren't represented by a peak. We always seem to have the wrong size room and type of desk available. So this is using utilization to inform architectural design and decisions in terms of the sizes of rooms, how many there are, understanding what's more popular, collaboration space versus focus space. How do we improve collaboration when everyone is in on different days? And then how do we know how many people are actually in today, which is the ultimate question when it comes to utilization, which is measuring actual occupancy. How many folks are in the office right now, and how many people have been in the office over time, being measured by a solution. So those are some of the challenges from the real estate management team perspective, looking to solve the utilization issues. And the main point that we're looking to arrive at today is how we can help solve both problems, which is improving the employee experience and at the same time improving utilization. All right, so let's say the average utilization is less than 50%, and even pre-pandemic in the prior state of primarily direct assigned, most folks that walked offices have a feeling that this is, 60%, 40%, 50% around the utilization of the actual space itself on an average basis. So if that's the case, how can employees feel the office is crowded? And then why can't we free up any space if utilization is in fact low? So some of the challenges when some of the metrics and knowns start to manifest themselves. So let's take a quick look back, and I alluded to some of this as I was going through some of the prior slides. So let's look at a real estate impact timeline of all the things that we've gone through from a real estate perspective over time. So pre-pandemic, otherwise referred to as business as usual before COVID was an issue, majority of space was allocated and assigned, meaning a person was assigned a desk in a space management solution or IWMS solution, whatever it was. So the plan was there. So Chris Lahamadou is assigned to this particular space, and that's it. That's your office or your desk or whatever it might be, and pictures of your family and all the personal stuff on that desk. That's your desk, regardless of whether or not you're using it. So when walkthroughs were conducted and some early utilization technology applied, we realized that not everyone's coming in all the time, or not everyone is in the office because they might be traveling and on sales calls or marketing meetings elsewhere, whatever it might be, so that space is not used all the time. And there was a small amount of space that was reservable. So space reservation systems have been around for a long time. I went to college for facilities management and space planning at Wentworth in Boston, and I focused most of my activity and research and thesis and papers I was writing on CAFM systems and space management systems. And I always wondered why space scheduling solutions were not more popular, even back 15 years ago when they were first coming around, because the benefit was so pronounced. You can leverage a space like a hotel room and leverage every moment of it because you're measuring that time dimension as opposed to just a plan. This person's assigned here and that's that. And then it dawned on me that too much of the onus has always been on the employee. So put into a sea of options. There's all these different resources that are reservable, and also your colleagues aren't always in the same space. So trying to figure out and coordinate with them when we're going to book and where we're going to book. So great value proposition, but not always realized. So small amount of space that was reservable. And then we had the Financial Accounting Standard Board, which is a US accounting standard board, and then the International Accounting Standard Board, which enacted new policies that changed the way leases were accounted for by both public and private organizations. So prior to this being instituted, this change, leases was, the lease cost, what organizations are paying for leases, was off the balance sheet. This transitioned it on the balance sheet. So a lease, a 10-year lease, was viewed as an asset, referred to as a right to use asset, and depreciated for the term of the lease, 10 years in the example I cited. And the reason for mentioning this all is what this forced or prompted was real estate organizations being reorged and rolling up to the CFO because of the additional financial oversight. So there's different metrics and measures that were instituted in some cases in terms of how real estate is measured in terms of whether or not it's performing in the right way, which is interesting because it's always real estate has always been number 2 in the P&L in most cases, behind HR. So employee payroll and all that being number 1 on the P&L, and real estate number 2, but was very much under the radar for a long time. So this really transitioned it from off the radar, off the balance sheet, and front and center in the public eye. So if I'm looking to invest in a company, I can read the SEC filings and understand what the real estate strategy is. And I can use that to make a decision. So it was important for folks to get those changes instituted in terms of being more strategic about how leases are accounted for. All right. So moving forward, then the pandemic hit, and we had the overnight shift to work from home and IT work from home enablement. So in a lot of situations, equipment had to be shipped out to homes. Organizations had to enable folks to be able to work from home overnight. And in a lot of situations, it was really amazing to see how seamless it went in a lot of cases. And it obviously took some fine tuning and tweaking to fully enable, but it was pretty amazing to witness that transition and how agile organizations were. Then we had the partial start to the return to office. This was getting critical HR back in the office that needed to be there. They only, maybe it's equipment related, whatever it might be, needed to work from the office. They didn't have the capability to work from home in full capacity. And this was controlling occupancy. So space scheduling systems being rapidly deployed to be able to control occupancy. So limiting how many people could be within a floor or building at any given time. And space scheduling is a great solution for that. You can set a restricted capacity in most cases, and then be able to enforce 6-foot social distancing or whatever the distance might have been. And then all the cleanup that had to happen between meetings. So making sure someone cleaned the desk before someone else could occupy it. So all those different rules that were applied to solutions, and SmartWay 2 in particular was extremely popular during this phase, because it's really good at being able to adapt to these different rules without customization. It was all configuration. And then post-pandemic, so the realization work from home is here to stay. The concept hybrid coming about, it was always there, but never referred to as hybrid. So even during the pre-pandemic, there was scheduling that was being deployed in some situations, direct assign being deployed, and then also the whole free address sort of theory that was being proven out pre-pandemic, which in fact was hybrid, but it was coined hybrid at this point. And then return to office programs, otherwise referred to as RTO. So these programs being put in place and thought about how are we going to reopen the offices in a safe way. And a lot of folks decided, well, if we're going to go back, no one's in the office now, so let's return in a different way. So a hybrid return to office. And also in that line, in that duration of time between this, there was an unprecedented amount of spend from an architectural perspective. So a lot of organizations saw the opportunity to re-architect floor plans so they were more fit for purpose, knowing that the return to office would be in a different way. And there was a lot of studies around the lack of collaboration and folks wanting to go back to the office to collaborate, hence there would be a higher demand. Surveys were conducted, so understanding how employees would like to work, getting their direct feedback, which increases buy-in. So would you like to have it come into the office all the time, or do you want to work in a days of the week capacity, come in a couple of days, or would you like to schedule when you come into the office? So surveying employees to gain a higher degree of understanding about their needs. Space scheduling continuing to be popular. So employing space scheduling, the benefit of space scheduling to be able to enable employees' choice by thinking about real estate in a different way. And we've had these discussions, or I've had these discussions with folks in prior webinars, which is thinking about real estate in a totally different way. Think about it as a service offering that you're offering to your customers, which are the employees. So you can put an interface on that service by way of space scheduling, and that has driven a lot of our business here at Hubstar and our SmartWay 2 product, which is a scheduling solution. We'll talk more about that a little bit further on. And then this hybrid return to office and planning, yielded the potential for excess space. We know that we're not going to need the same size portfolio to meet this hybrid demand. And then also understanding the impact on employee experience. So our solution to that is, and why Hubstar, to be frank, exists. So Hubstar is the name of our company, and the two products we have that we'll be talking about today is SmartWay 2 and our next generation of SmartWay 2, which is referred to as Smart Experience, and then also Hubstar Space Utilization, which is measuring actual occupancy. So those two solutions help with those problems dramatically by identifying potential excess space, and then providing a positive in-office experience through a smart experience. We'll get into more detail as to what that means, and providing employees choice. And then this gets into what's next. So what's next? We know that the one thing we can sort of count on is change. So what's next? And optimizing and acting on that potential excess space is one of the things that, in talking with a lot of folks, is forecasted to be next. We're going to have to act on that and analyze all this data and sort out what that new portfolio is going to be. And there's a lot of analysis that goes into that. And then we've got the inflation that everyone's going through and recession fears. You turn on the news and it's a hot topic that's being discussed, and who knows whether it's going to happen or not. But I'm a planner. I always like to plan for the worst and sort of hope for the best. So get ahead of these things and enable oneself to come to the table with solutions as opposed to problems. So that's one of the reasons why we're talking to you today on this webinar, is to help you understand what can be done today to help prepare for those the potential amplification of the optimization of the portfolio. All right. So how can successful hybrid management prepare you for what's next? So let's dive into this a bit. So let's run through a use case, which sort of goes back on some of the things that we've discussed so far. So we've got the work from home contingent, right? So folks that are working from home, we're initiating return to office programs. It might be underway now, and they're under constant revisions based upon feedback. And then we've got the going back into the office in the same way in many cases, back to the, hey, just go back to the desk that you had. And we're seeing that transition from work from home happen back to the office. And as that's happening, you've got the balance between work from home and work in the office, and the fluctuation that's happening between the two. And by way of measuring, we can understand a little bit about the patterns that are occurring. So to achieve equilibrium, or understand even equilibrium between the two, we measure to manage. So let's take a look at some of the analytics that we provide. So these are some of the analytics that we provide within Hubstar Space Utilization, which is a pre-built suite of analytics that are focused on utilization metrics. So actual utilization, the count of people are in the office over time. So this is one that is playing utilization back over a duration of time that was selected, and that is overlaid on top of a floor plan as opposed to a chart. And the reason being, we can visually see what's popular, what's not popular. Is this area something that's being used more heavily than others? It's a good way to sort of prove out as well. Maybe there was some architectural investment during the out of the office time. Is it something that's working? Should we roll this new architectural change out to other buildings and floors? It might be kitchenettes, whatever it may be. So understanding how those are performing, and you can see that front and center right on the floor plan. And then another one I'll show you here is the trend analysis. So this is taking a look at a time frame of utilization data, and then returning that back as the patterns of use. So Mondays versus Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. As you can see, and you can see the established pattern for the duration of time that's being analyzed, a year, a month, 6 months, whatever it might be. But then what's really important too is that overlay that you see, that green line, that's the trend line. So this is showing that there's a trend going down. So this is telling us that people are coming into the office, but less are returning. So this is identifying that there's a problem with the return to office program. If this was going up, fantastic. People are returning to the office, having a positive experience. If it's level, okay, we're doing all right. But in this case, it's going down. So knowing this information can help. Well, first of all, we can dive into the analytics and understand perhaps why, and then adjust the return to office program accordingly. Adapt and overcome, as we say. So that's just a couple of examples within the suite of analytics that we offer. And again, the entirety of the focus is utilization. So knowing this information helps solve or answer the questions that we outlined earlier in the prior slides, which were the real estate organization outlining problems, right? So understanding a Monday is very popular. Why? So diving into to understand why. So now we're taking a look at some of the hybrid adoption. So we looked at the prior slides, which were the work from home, coming back to the office in the same way, organizations starting to measure a bit and understand, well, not everyone's coming back to the office every single day. So a very popular strategy is fixed allocations days of the week. So as opposed to you having this desk every single day, it's your desk on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then someone else's desk on Wednesdays and Fridays, or Mondays and Wednesdays, whatever it might be. So essentially permanently assigning someone to a desk, but on a specific day of the week. This is a great strategy in terms of increasing a sharing ratio, but it's not accounting for productivity, collaboration, who's in on what days someone changes plans. So it's not accounting for the employee experience to the fullest extent it potentially could. All right, so if we take a look at the effect of work from home on the workplace, we spoke about this a bit when talking about the actual analytics coming out of HubStar space utilization. And in this case, we're seeing it overlaid on a heat map. We could see the Mondays being, in this case, being a little low, Tuesdays a little higher, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. So just to really make the point, because employees are given choice, they're coming into the office when they want to, when they need to, and we're seeing this impact on the office, on the workplace occupancy, and we can identify too what that peak is, what that worst case is. So we've got a heavy use on Tuesdays, which is pretty close to the overall capacity. So let's dive into a little bit the sharing ratio. So I mentioned 2 slides ago a sharing ratio. So when we were talking about some folks that are going to a shared desk, but still from a permanent assignment perspective, I mentioned sharing ratio. So just wanted to define it so everyone knows what it is, because it's a super important planning metric that we produce and provide to our users on the SmartWay 2 side and HubStar side. So just to dive into it, I won't spend a lot of time going through this, but permanent assignment, right? So just to sort of set the baseline. So Chris Lahamadou is assigned to desk 105, therefore it's designated as occupied, and that's that. So we're calculating that as a 1-to-1 sharing ratio. So even though I'm not using that space every single day, it's viewed as occupied 24/7 from a planning perspective. Now, I'm going to blend in some of our smart experience sort of between the line benefits. So even in this situation where someone fills out a survey and says, I would like a permanently assigned desk, and they qualify for it when they're not in the office for whatever reason, vacation or whatever it might be, SmartWay 2 Smart Experience can make that space available when Chris is not in the office. So it's the value between the lines. And then the next concept here is if we know Chris is only coming in 2 days a week, we can switch to a days of the week assignment. And we spoke about this earlier. So the remaining days could be assigned to someone else. So in this case, we've got a sharing ratio of 2 to 1. So I referenced a higher sharing ratio. So if we've got 2 people being accommodated by 1 space, it's a 2 to 1 sharing ratio. All right. And then that between the line benefit. So Chris and Frankie can be scheduled on those days. And then when they're not going to be in, or in this case, there's a free day, Friday can be made available to be scheduled. So it's those additional efficiencies that can be realized. And then getting to the highest impact on a sharing ratio. So space scheduling occupancy strategy can allow employees to book, and just like a hotel room. And I made that example earlier. So with this strategy, it provides the highest degree of options in terms of trying to achieve a particular a ratio goal. So a lot of organizations have set a goal. We want our sharing ratio to be X. Well, how do we achieve those goals? You need to employ strategies that have a higher than 1 to 1 sharing ratio. So in this case, space scheduling has been set up with 2-hour intervals, which gives us the potential for a 4 to 1 ratio. And then the smart experience is recommending space near colleagues. So in a space scheduling world, people are in different places all the time. So what smart experience is doing in our next generation that we're referring to it as, so SmartWay 2 next generation, we're referring to it as smart experience. We're making recommendations to users, and the whole idea is to take the onus off of the employee. So making recommendations, hey, you should select this space because it's near your colleagues. All right, so all of this in unison. So the more sharing ratio occupancy strategies are adapted, the higher the potential grows. And the wider that this is adopted in terms of a portfolio adoption, the overall sharing ratio improves. So let's take all of this. Well, before I do that, one benefit of SmartWay 2, again, between the lines, is all these strategies can be managed in one system. So we support direct assignments, days of the week, and then also obviously the space scheduling. And the benefit is within one system, the planned occupancy for days for future time periods is identified. So we can make recommendations as to where folks should sit nearest their colleagues, because we're not missing any data, the direct assignments or whatever it might be. So that's the between the lines sort of benefit. So let's take a look at this from a business case perspective. So using an example of a 1 million square foot portfolio strategy of 1 to 1. So 1 to 1 is decided to still be a strategy that's employed in this particular situation. 25% of the portfolio, we need 250,000 square feet of supply to meet this demand. 2 to 1, so that sharing, days of the week sharing, 25% of the portfolio allocated to this strategy, 125,000 square feet required of supply required to meet that demand. And then lastly, scheduling. So a 4 to 1 potential ratio here, 50% of the portfolio being allocated to desk sharing and room scheduling, 125,000 square feet of supply required to meet this demand. Now we take all of these and add them up. That's a potential of a 50% supply reduction. And it's important, that word potential, right? So it's not being realized right now, it's just identifying that potential. And the other benefit of this is from a sustainability perspective. So that potential 50% supply reduction equates to a savings of 4,227 tons of CO2. So that can have probably the most significant contribution to any sustainability initiatives or carbon neutral initiatives that you may have. And down below is where that metric came from. All right, so I spoke a lot about smart space scheduling and sort of described some benefits as we were going through the webinar today, but really just want to hone in on it real quick. So Hubstar, again, the name of our company, and our two products, Hubstar Space Utilization and SmartWay 2. And Smart Experience is the next generation of SmartWay 2. So we've rebuilt our space scheduling solution to be more experience oriented, to really solve that problem of the onus being transitioned from employees to the system and working on behalf of occupants or employees as opposed to the inverse. And then Hubstar Space Utilization, actually measuring actual occupancy. Now, these are two separate products that are available separately. However, if both products are being used by an organization, they are integrated inherently out of the box. So there's a benefit of the two, the amplified benefit of the two being used in unison. So let's take a look at that. So this is the office occupancy trend that we took a look at earlier. So the effect of work from home on office occupancy. And then if we overlay on top of that, the effect of occupancy influence. So a smart space scheduling solution, which is capable of influencing occupancy, not telling people, but influencing it. People don't like to be told what to do. So this is by understanding what the patterns are and then influencing occupancy accordingly, we can help flatten the curve. And what this does is it increases that potential for portfolio reduction. So if we were just going off of the peaks here, right, you could see that high watermark. So this highlights the delta between the two strategies. And this highlights the potential capacity that that can be adjusted accordingly, right? Again, it's just identifying the potential. And if we were to look at just that high watermark, that peak, versus the influenced end result, it's significant. So if you look at the opportunity to reduce the portfolio, in the prior situation, there's a small amount, maybe 10% there. But we're actually unlocking a third of the portfolio in terms of identifying that potential by managing that peak accordingly. So this just identifies and concludes all the things that we've been talking about around improving employee experience by giving employees choice, but influencing it at the same time by working on behalf of the employee and also by measuring actual utilization. So in conclusion, our last slide here, which with the right approach, you can turn conflict into synergy. So that inherent conflict of utilization, portfolio reduction, and employee experience. So we feel strongly we can solve both with a single solution. So with that, awesome. We'll open it up to questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing this presentation with us today. And thank you to all attendees for sending in questions. We're now going to move over into a Q&A portion to address some of the questions that you've sent in. And please continue to submit questions via the question box. Okay, Chris. So my first question here is, would we need to deploy sensors to start collecting data and measure space?
Good question. Well, I'm sure they'll all be good questions, but the answer to that is no. So with Hubstar Space Utilization, we realize that sensors offer all kinds of potential opportunity, but there's sometimes a barrier to entry because of the cost and installation. So with Hubstar Space Utilization, we added in a stepping stone in terms of the data that we can leverage to return utilization, and that is Wi-Fi. So we have the capability to integrate to your corporation's Wi-Fi infrastructure in a safe and secure way. It's all GDPR compliant. And that is giving us the capability through our algorithms to determine from all the devices that are connected to Wi-Fi to determine what's the count of actual people in a particular area for a particular point in time. So that offers our customers the capability to leverage Wi-Fi to start and then strategically deploy sensors where it makes the most sense, which is, I'm going on this answer for a while, but it's a big differentiator of ours is we can have multiple data sources. So start with Wi-Fi and then bring in additional sensors from different vendors or one single vendor over time.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, we have another question here. I think in the example you provided before, you used a 1 million square foot portfolio as an example. Would you say this would work with a smaller portfolio as well?
Yes. So I just chose a 1 million square foot portfolio as the example for the math there in terms of the business case. It's easier, dealing with a round number like 1 million square feet. But the answer to the question is yes, the solution works for smaller portfolios. We have clients that are focused on one or two buildings. So they're trying to, they are understanding the actual utilization so they can understand the maximum amount of occupants that they can serve within that one building. So it's helping them control expansion. So fully leveraging that one building or two buildings before there's any thought into signing another lease or building another building or whatever the decision would be from there. So yes is the direct answer to that question.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so I have another question here. Would employees still have the ability to just book conference rooms or desk with SmartWay 2?
Yes. So in this particular webinar, we were talking about a lot about what we refer to as smart experience, which is the next generation of space scheduling, where I'm repeating myself, but taking the onus off the employee and putting on the software and making recommendations. We did not remove the capability, all the great things that made SmartWay 2 a great solution prior. So all of the first generation scheduling capability is still there. So someone can just log into their mobile app or go to the web application and search for a particular conference room that meets their needs and book it for a point in time and do a repeat booking maybe for a week. So we still have all the blocking and tackling, so to speak, of a traditional space scheduling solution. So all that's still there, and we're adding on these additional capabilities. So I refer to it as extensibility. So folks are always looking to buy a solution that meets their immediate needs, but also the potential future needs. So it might be, I need to solve just scheduling right now, but knowing where we're going from a product perspective and having that alignment in terms of your strategies and ours is a great partnership opportunity.
Awesome, perfect. Okay, I have another question here. Do you support integrations with other sensors? I think this question circles back to one of your earlier answers. This question says, we have a device which provides people counting and occupancy, which we'd like, learning a little bit more about options here.
Yes. So we integrate with a variety of different sensor types out of the box. There's a lot of popular sensor vendors out there today and putting out some really great technology, and that's ever the capabilities are ever increasing with the amount of innovation going into that particular market. But any hardware sensor that you have deployed that has an API component, so that sensor is feeding into a repository, a database, and that data exposed via API, yes, we have the capability to integrate with it. If there is no API, we even can think outside of the box where a file being transferred to us via secure SFTP or whatever it might be, and then us picking it up and processing it. So even if it didn't have an API, there are still other ways in which we can leverage that data. We try to consume anything that's available, and if it's a sensor that's collecting and counting, whatever it might be, we would look to leverage that or offer the option to leverage it. And it's also similar potentially to integrating with access control systems and the security badge swipes that typically comes across as files as opposed to direct API integration. So the short answer to that, yes.
Perfect. Okay, I have another question here. Somebody is asking or kind of stating, you defined a remote worker earlier on. How does this compare to maybe a mobile worker? Is the latter used more for staff touching down just about anywhere or not necessarily in a dedicated office?
Yeah, great point. Great point. And understanding that's something that space planners have struggled with for quite some time is how much space do I offer to, as touchdown space? So there's work from home, right? Folks that are working from home, and then there's people that are working in different capacities and on the road a lot and need to come into an office to print something off or whatever it might be. So they need to touch down for a period of time. So the hot desking or touchdown space. So how much of that space do you need to leverage demand? So being able to identify, okay, here's that area of the portfolio allocated to that strategy, and then starting to measure it. How well is it being used? So a lot of folks don't want to offer that type of space as scheduled because it's defeating the purpose. The benefit of it is a hot desk. I just walk in and sit down. That's the whole purpose of it. So being able to measure that using utilization is proved to be very valuable because you can understand, okay, we don't have enough of this. There's too much demand for it, right? But we're looking at the analytics over time and it's over occupied, which is negative. And people might not have a negative experience and not come back in and use it, or there's way too much of it. So we can use that space for other strategies, maybe recapture that space and build additional conference rooms. So hopefully that answers your question. If not, if sort of blanket statement, if I misrepresent any question, please reach out to us and I'd be more than happy to have a one-on-one conversation and talk through the exact nature of the question and understand a little bit better and answer it hopefully correctly.
Perfect, thank you. I think we have time for maybe one more question. Okay, let me take a look here. So you mentioned earlier, you had discussed, really how you kind of walked through how things have changed since the beginning of the pandemic until where we are now, especially for anyone that's looking to kind of improve on, that's really looking to make these changes and implement more of a strategy. What advice might you have for maybe helping employees get used to this new system?
That's a great question. Not that all these questions weren't great questions, but we always recommend, so when we're implementing our solutions, in order for them to be successful, they need to be coupled with a strong change management plan. So you're introducing change. And not everyone is always comfortable with change, right? I used to go into the office and it was fine. Everything was fine. Why are we changing? Why do I need to schedule when I come into the office? So it's important to educate folks and inform folks as to why these things are being put in place. So that change management education, all the components that go into a change management place helps with the adoption of technology, in this case, Hubstar solutions, and then increases the chance for success. Technology on its own is not always going to be successful, right? The change management component is super important.
Perfect, thank you. And we actually do have one more question that we're going to get through. I think we'll have time for one more. You showed floor plans in one slide. How are these imported into the system?
Another great question. So in a variety of ways is the answer. So those floor plans can be provided in image format, so we consume anything is the net answer. So if you have PDFs or you have image files of floor plans, we can consume those to represent the as-built, that's what's referred to, the architecture of a floor. And then if you have AutoCAD or DWG files, as-built DWGs, that's even better. So that's what we prefer because it allows us to set the resolution, clean things up, remove all the things that would distract from the user experience, right? So a lot of times in files, there might be like a fire evacuation plan, and it's distracting to the purpose. Folks might be asking, well, why are there arrows all over the place? So the answer is to that, we can consume image files, PDFs, but the preferred is DWG because it gives us the most options. And also, DWG files contain data, location numbers, maybe even polylines, which is fantastic. So we can leverage all of that data to provide a catalyst to the implementation process. So we can even shorten the implementation in some cases, depending upon the data that can be garnered from that DWG file, which is ultimately a database of drawing entities.
Great, thank you so much. I think we are out of time at this point. If your question, as Chris mentioned, if your question was not answered, we can forward it to Chris, who can address it offline. Chris, again, thank you for your talk today, and to Hubstar for sponsoring this webinar. And thank you to our audience for attending today. A recording from today's session will be made available on our magazine's website, facilityexecutive.com. Thank you and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.